Կարոտ է ժողովուրդ ջան, մենք այսօրվա եթերը սկսում ենք շատ հետաքրքիր նորությունով, ձերբակալել են Սաշիկ Սարգսյանին, բայց ուզում ենք բոլորին հանգստացնենք, հնարավորինի զենքով են ձերբակալել եւ ըստ երևույթին իր մոտի զենքերը դրիվ ապօրինի չեն, կեսը ապօրինի են, կեսը պորինի են։ Սկսում ենք ADEKVAD-ի 7-րդ էպիզոդը։ Այսօր ինչպես եւ խոստացել էինք, խոսենք Կուտակայինից եւ եթերը կլինի լատինատար։ Մենք հիմա հանգստեղ։ Ահա, նա ցենց բանան է։ Ռակ ողջուն եք, Արթուր։ Էպիզոդը սկսել ենք։
I'm very over. Բանա լայվա։
Հա, լայվը արդեն մտել ենք։ Ես ձեզ կթողեմ իր առանց լայվի խինկալի ուտեք։
Բանը ասա։
Դեն։ Հա, շտը։ Ողջուն, զվուկային մասնագիտական
հակապետական քարոզի համակիրներին ողջունում եմ։ Մենք այսօր Դենի հետ ենք, Դենը 15 տարի պորտֆոլիո մենեջեր է եղել Նյու Յորքում, մենեջեր է իթիվս այլ արժեթղթերի, նաև կուտակային պլաներ, ասենց ասեմ։ Ամերիկայում ամենապոպուլյարը 401k-ն է, հա, կենսաթոշակային։ Դրա մասին ենք խոսելու ենք ինչպես խոստացել ենք լատինատար, այսինքն անգլերեն, զուտ մասնագիտական է լինելու զրույցը, միջև զրույցը սկսելը, բայց ես առաջարկում եմ մեր MIT-ում սովորող
MIT-ի լավ աղբերների
մեր լավ աղբերների կենացը
MIT-ում սովորող
Հայկ ջան կենացդ
MIT-ի լավերի Եվ խնդրում եմ բոլոր անուղեղ մարդիկ թող անջատվեն միանգամից, որովհետև սա շատ վտանգավոր եթեր կլինի իրենց համար, շատ վտանգավոր։
Կարող է մի փոքր ուղեղ ավելանա։
Չէ, պետք չի, բայց
պետք չի։ Մի լսեք։
Հպարտ քաղաքացիներ մի լսեք, դուխով։
Dan, pensions. What do you think? No, I know
about what components
I know you had reservations for this. The whole plan?
Well, let's start off with the beginning. I had my reservations about the mandatory component when the former Prime Minister Daniel Ara Kelegian announced it for several reasons. Number one, I was used to employees and citizens in the U.S. of having the right to whether to participate or not in a plan.
So basically, first of all, the compulsory part of it. Here's the thing. In the United States, you have, 350 million people?
320, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. In here, it's a bit less than that. 2 zeros less than that.
Yeah.
So when you're inviting someone, a foreign fund, to manage assets, you're going to need to give them a value where they could earn something. Mm-hmm. Unless it's compulsory, how else could it be profitable for a fund to manage these funds?
Okay, well, at the time, as pretty much everyone here in Armenia, we were up in arms about the compulsory component. People have to have the right to come in and this and that.
Not everyone.
What? Not everyone. A lot of people were. I mean, but there were protests here, small protests here and there, and eventually, basically, the government decided, to cut that out.
Also
I know,
due to political reasons.
Of course, due to political reasons. At the time, though, I felt as though being someone who was in the marketplace for 15 years, managing money and so forth, I thought they were being somewhat lazy.
In terms of what?
In terms of installing the mandatory component and bringing on, two money managers. One is Sigwat, and the other one Amundi, in terms of not letting those money managers go out and get the business.
No, listen,
in other words,
that's
at the time.
No, listen.
That's at the time.
Listen, in reality, in real life, what we have is 400,000 pensioners. You realize what that is? That's
the Social Security Fund.
A very small town.
The Social Security Fund.
A very small town in the U.S.
Yes.
Has 400,000 pensioners. What you're asking these investors, these fund managers, to come into a country the size of a small town in the U.S., a very small town in the U.S., and manage their pensions.
No, actually, what at the time
and you're telling them you're not supposed to have it compulsory. You're supposed to go out and sell the plan to people who have no idea what the plan is, to people whose average income is roughly on the edge of being poor,
right?
And then again, 400,000. This is the pool that we have to work.
Okay, now my question is this: what is worse, asking those money managers to go out and explain the plan to these people and get the contributions, or installing a mandatory component on those people who you're saying who had no idea what the plan is about, how it works? I mean, as far as
politically, or
as far as politically, as far as socially, as far as economically.
Of course,
if you're saying that people don't know a clue about the plan, okay, it would be a lot better for those people, for the citizens of Armenia, not to implement a mandatory contribution at the time, a mandatory contribution, and say you have to put into this plan you have no clue about. Okay, and then have the managers go and explain to them this is what the plan is, and okay, and the guy's going to be like, I don't want this. He'll say, I don't want this. Why is this being implemented on me? This is at the time, Arthur. This is at the time.
No, even now.
No, even at the time when I was because now the percentages have come down. And so
there's laws of physics. If you have a very small pool of pensioners, unless it's mandatory, it's not going to work. And if it's not going to work, what's the alternative?
Who says it wouldn't have worked?
I'm saying it's not going to work. Would you manage a fund that you have to sell?
No, but
in Armenia, would you manage it?
Absolutely.
If you had to sell it?
Absolutely.
If you only had like 10,000.
You know this. We were thinking about doing this years ago.
No, literally 10,000 people with the pension of 40,000 drams, $100. 10,000 people, $100.
At the time,
would you manage it?
I would have been prepared.
No, would you manage
at the time, I would have been prepared to submit my resume to those money managers
and
go out to every factory, every business owner in Armenia, and set up meetings so they can bring their employees. No, I didn't.
Why?
Because it was implemented as mandatory.
Because there's no money in it.
Why is there no money?
You wouldn't earn.
What makes you think I wouldn't earn?
Wouldn't earn
you think these fund managers are not earning a management fee?
Because of the compulsory component, they would. Because of the compulsory.
No.
No, okay. The market size. I think we're not going to agree on this.
No. Look. At the time, I had my doubts and my reservations because. I was used to going out and selling the product and getting people to contribute into plans. And at that time...
You sold products in America where you had 300 million people.
It doesn't matter. It's
much easier. No, it does.
You have to calculate the labor force here in Armenia, okay? And the labor force here in Armenia is what? Out of a 3 million population, it's what? Maybe 1/3, 40% of it?
Labor force, 78% are labor.
You have to. We're counting 18 to working limit. 60 years old.
But half of them work in agriculture.
Okay, half of them work in agriculture.
Half of them are
you have the clients. So even today you have 180.
No, you don't. That's what I'm saying.
Even with the compulsory. Today, even with the compulsory, and then they took out the compulsory, today, in 4 years, you have only 180,000 people. Even the compulsory didn't bring on 300,000 or 400,000 into the system.
Compulsory.
They took out the compulsory a few years ago.
Yes. For a certain, what do you call it?
At the time, I had my reservations because, number one, in the civil code, I mean, where does it say that the government has to implement an obligatory pension fund contributions from its citizenry?
No,
number one.
That's number one. Okay, let's talk about the alternative. You don't implement it. The fund managers don't come because they will never come unless it's compulsory. So what do you suggest they do?
You find fund managers that would come, or you create local fund managers. There's a lot of investment firms in Armenia. Okay, we had this discussion years ago. There's a lot of investment firms in Armenia that were licking their chops to get this project, but it was given. We have to give it, to Amundi, or we have to give it to ADEKVAD. Those people who have, hundreds of billions in assets under management up till the global crisis, and then that went down, and now it's gone back up again. But there were plenty of investment. There were banks in Armenia that have, investment arms that could have managed the money. They could have managed the money.
I don't think they could.
And at the time, we had this discussion because there were a lot of people that I was talking to, investment firms and banks, to try and get the investment fund market going. And they were saying, no, we want to get involved in the pension fund. And I was telling them at the time, you're not going to get the pension fund business. You might get subcontracted out in administration or something else, but you're not going to get the pension fund business. And that's what happened. They didn't get the pension fund business. They went to Amundi and they brought in another company. At the time, you could have used local investment firms. Okay, especially since the majority of the funds are invested in Armenian securities. You could have had, and they have the experience in Armenian securities.
Do you have any idea what the overheads of selling a plan like this in Armenia would be? In a labor-intensive industry, most of the cost is in selling.
What you could
so basically,
look, we're a small country.
We're
a small country here. We're a small country here.
Whose pension is $100 a month.
We could have. You could have basically split it up between the whatever, no tender or whatever, but you could have basically split it up between banks and investment firms and say, this is what you're going to go after. You have the list of corporations in Armenia, and they go after the corporations. They set meetings. They invite the directors. They invite the people to do it.
Half of the labor force in 40, I think 5% of the labor force in Armenia is in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize what it means to sell a plan for a person who's always been digging Tarkmani?
It's
yes, of course.
It's work. If you want to make money, you got to go get the money. For me, it would be a lot. It would have been much better for me.
Yes, of course.
For me, it would have been a lot better for that citizen, for that laborer, that agricultural worker, for a company, the management company, to go to the village, sit with the mayor, get a meeting going, and explain it to them instead of having this mandatory thing.
Darren,
at the time, that's how it was.
Done that? How many times have you actually tried to go and explain?
You have to try. In order to create the market, the free market, you have to do it that way.
Սովորել էի, գրել էի, դες գիշերը ուսումնասիրել էի, 20%-ը իրոք մեր հենայի 20%-ը։ 20-ից ավելի Չէ։ Քիչ է, բայց մեկը ինքը շատ շատ։
As far as
ամենան չի, բայց աշխարհի ամենաբարձրներից
մեկն է։ Նկատում եմ մեր հենայի ամենաբարձր հատվածը գյուղատնտեսություն։
Գյուղատնտեսություն, եթե հնա 3 մասի բաժանես, սերվիս, ինդուստրի, գյուղատնտեսությունն ելնելու ամենացածը։
Այդ տիպի հասկացա։
Կրինու եք շարունակենք։ Now, okay, compulsory pagging։ Հիմա ես զուտ ազգային անվտանգության հարց եմ ուզում բարձրացնել։ An issue of national security. Do you think if these funds are more transparent in their investments, do you think it could be an issue of national security? Keep in mind, we have a neighbor who bought 300 million worth of Hungarian bonds in order to release Ramil Safar.
I think it was more than that. But as far as, I don't know how it would fit, I mean, as far as the national security threat, I mean, today we have external investment companies that are buying our government bonds. Companies are coming over, investment companies are coming here and they're buying.
A government bond is one thing, a pension fund is a different thing. A pension
I don't see any risk, I mean, national security risk. Where I do see the risk is, and we can harp on this for a while, the main risk I see is that there aren't any other investment options. And I'll give you some numbers. up till today.
No, what do you mean, an investment option?
Investment options for the worker, whoever is involved in the plan. I'll give you some numbers. Up till today, over the last 4 years, the pension fund has accumulated, I think, $200+ million, let's say. I think the Prime Minister announced a couple of weeks ago in a government meeting that it was 250 million. But there are 3 funds today. One is a balanced fund, one is a conservative fund, and one is a fixed income fund. Yeah. Now, if you look at the charter of those funds, okay, they're basically investing in the same things, except the percentages might be different. Let's say in the balanced fund, they might be able, the manager has the ability to go up to 50% in foreign equities and foreign bonds. In the conservative, they have up to 25%. But 98% of that money today is in the conservative fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's much less risky.
Well, let's review that for a second. Okay. But I've spoken to several people. Okay, people that I know that are close to me, and they've taken part in the fund, but they haven't decided which fund to go in. They're allowing the manager to do that. So basically, what's happened is you have these 2 funds that have basically nothing in it, and everything is in the conservative fund. So
so what you're saying is
it's quite possible that there are a lot of people who are saying you decide. You know, they're coming and sitting with the person, the manager, and the manager's saying this, and they're saying you decide. We don't care.
They should do what?
What I'm saying is that, and I'm pretty sure that the central bank and maybe the government, they are thinking about this in the future because it's needed.
I don't think the government today, right now is thinking about anything.
The central bank has to be thinking about it. Today, you have 2 issues. Number one, you don't have other investment options. I'll give you an example. The conservative fund today has 98% of those assets in it. Today, up till today, over 30% is invested in Armenian bank deposits and savings accounts. Over 30% is invested in Armenian government bonds, 1 to 7 year maturities. 6 or 7% is invested in Armenian corporate bonds. That market is very small. And another 6 or 7%, another 6 or 7, I'll get to that. Another 6 or 7% is invested in foreign fixed income, and 18 or 19% is invested in foreign stocks, but not stocks per se, ETFs or mutual funds.
Zero risk.
Well, there's a lot of risk, okay, because the employee, the Armenian citizen who's partaking in this fund, is in one fund. He doesn't have any options. Okay, and he doesn't have the option of taking money out of this fund and going into another fund. What options am I talking about?
You're in portfolio.
Portfolio options he doesn't have. Number one, the most important option that he doesn't have is he doesn't have a money market account whereby he can cash out, he can take a profit. Today, that conservative fund is up 43% since inception.
No, but why would you allow him to have
because
the opportunity to
passive. He's not cashing out of the pension plan. He's cashing out of that fund. He's seeing a 43% market rise over the last 4 years in the fund. He's saying, I want to lock in my profit and I want to go back into cash. Bonds have gone up through the roof the last 2 years, and we're at a top right now. Are rates going to go lower so bonds go higher even more? I don't think so.
So what you're saying that the ordinary citizen should have the opportunity to choose his portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
How many ordinary citizens do you know who know the meaning of the word portfolio?
No, there's got to be more than that. I mean, come on, Arthur. I know a lot of people who have online trading accounts. I know a lot of people who have online trading accounts with interactive online brokers. They're trading.
25?
It doesn't matter. It's not. Armenian
of the 400,000 pensioners,
the banking sector.
You're offering a reform for what, like 50 people?
I can assure you that at least 75% of the employees in the banking and the investment field in Armenia know what it means to buy stocks or create a portfolio.
75.
It's not 10,000
75%, really?
The banking.
75%.
Yeah.
I've been in banking. I know the people who work in banking.
But you were in banking a long time ago. You were in banking for 10 years ago. You were in banking. But anyway, I want to just revert to this because the central bank has to be looking at this. The customer, here's the risk. You have a fund where all the money is concentrated in this one fund. It's concentrated in this one sector, Armenian fixed income, because 70%, 75% of the fund is in Armenian fixed income.
Isn't this good? The money stays here.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. The money stays here. It doesn't matter. 25% of the fund is also invested in foreign securities. Okay, so it doesn't matter. What you need to do is you need to give the client other options. Right? What would happen today if you had a global crisis, or you even had a crisis in Armenia, or you had a crisis in Russia, and the dirham went to 650? Okay, and interest rates shot back up on the 5-year or the 7-year back to 15-16%. That bond fund is going to go back down.
Yes, sure.
Okay, and you cannot have passive investing anymore.
I just want to
it's
make
gone
sure
through the
people know
roof.
what you're talking about. So what you're suggesting is to shift the responsibility towards the client.
It's his money.
So that when the markets go down, the fund manager doesn't have the responsibility for it. Is this what you're saying?
No, the fund manager has the responsibility of executing the charter of the fund. Okay, he does not. He has the responsibility.
So what you're
of
trying
that.
to say is the person whose pension is in the fund should have more responsibility.
No,
so
he should have more options to diversify his portfolio. For example, okay, in 401ks, in pension funds, in Europe and in the U.S., you have other options. You don't just have the option of investing in your government bonds, and that's it.
Yeah, but
you have a large cap.
Those markets are they're gigantic.
It doesn't matter. Here, you have that foreign option here. Why not just bring on other foreign funds? You could bring on an S&P fund. You could bring on a gold fund or a silver fund. You could bring on a foreign bond fund. You could bring on another fund. You could bring on so many funds. Every 401k or pension plan in America has at least 10 or 15 funds in it.
More risky than the conservative one.
No, risky, but you're diversifying.
It should be more risky.
No, not risky. You're diversifying. There's more risk right now in with the Armenian pension fund contributor being in one sector than there would be if you had the option of going into other sectors and diversify. Maybe 20% here, 10% here, 15% there.
Sector.
Huh?
One local sector, you mean?
It's just Armenia.
One sector, you mean our internal market that needs the money. It needs the money.
Look, I mean, it needs the money.
Needs the money.
You're financing the banks. Okay, the government
banks.
Yes, the government is subsidizing the banks.
Not New York banks, our banks.
Right, but you have that component. You have that 25% component, or maybe up to 50% component in the balance fund, where the manager can invest in foreign securities. Why not take that component out of the fund, keep that conservative fund as an Armenia fixed income fund, and offer separate funds to the client?
For people who want to risk more, or maybe not risk more, but invest in foreign banks.
Look, you can ask any
so
market professional, and he will tell you that an S&P 500 index fund is a whole lot less riskier than an Armenian government bond fund. Okay, Armenian government bonds today are B+. They're junk. They're junk.
To sum up, to sum up, I know you as an Armenian nationalist.
Yes. I love Armenia.
Maybe a bit socialist as well.
No, I'm not a socialist.
But an Armenian nationalist saying that we should transfer our funds abroad creates somewhat of a dissonance. For
you're not transferring the funds directly abroad. The money manager is transferring abroad, and you already have those components in that fund.
We should give the opportunity to our clients to
diversify. Diversify
abroad, which is not that good of an idea.
Because you can't diversify here. You can't diversify here. What you could do is you could implement in the charter, since you have in the conservative fund, let's say, the manager has 25%, the ability to invest 25% in foreign securities. Put that in the plan. Say that the investor can only invest out of $1, 25 cents into those foreign funds. The remaining 75% could be here. Or if he wants to be more in an aggressive fund, up to 50%. Look, let's be realistic here, okay? We are creating more debt with this fund, okay? We have $7 billion in debt today, the government does. It's 70% of GDP, and the finance minister today is saying it's manageable. Okay, it's manageable.
No, it's not.
It's not manageable, okay? It's not manageable.
No, I mean,
do you
could be
want
for political reasons?
the
but
government is
financially
basically
speaking, it's not.
subsidizing its own bond issuance, its own bond issuances, and we're going to go into deeper debt.
No. Considering the fact that people watching us are not the people who watch Bloomberg, I need you to clarify on this, because this is a very good point. Basically, when you're saying that 2.5% of your income goes to the pension fund and 7.5 goes from the government,
Starting next month, yeah.
but the money accumulated in the pension fund goes to buying government bonds. Basically, what it means is you're subsidizing your own bonds. And basically, what you're doing is you're increasing your internal, not external, but internal debt, which is not that great either. Now, this is a very good point.
Yeah, I think, look.
Which is why I think the 2.5% was a very wrong idea. It was a political solution to
What it needs to do today is they need to look. Today's government is putting pressure everywhere in Armenia. I think what the government needs to do is need to talk to the central bank, and they need to talk to the asset managers. And even though you have a mandatory component of 2.5%, they need to get out there. The managers need to get out there, or they need to call in and say, and they need to have seminars. I mean, big seminars. They need to explain to people what this is, because as long as they don't, until they don't do that.
Do you think they can?
Yeah, they can.
You think there's a person in the government that could do that?
I'm not saying the government should do it. I'm saying the government should put pressure and say, look, you need to go out there. I'm not saying. Look, I'm not a socialist. I'm not for government interference. I mean, Milton Friedman said government
Լավ ընկերնա, իմ տեսած լավագույն տրեկվարտիստաներից է, ֆուտբոլ են խաղացել իրար։
Ստեսություն ժողովուրդ։
Սաշիկին է բռնե, իմացա։ 50% բան արեցի։ Հիշեցի։